All right, continuing from where we left off. Last time we created all of our REST endpoints, and we talked about the next step being to update our tests to perform extensive testing of our REST endpoints. So we have an initial test already for the get all to-do lists endpoint. We disable logging so we don't see Jersey logging. We configure our API application with database information, and then we've got a bunch of different methods that are basically copy pasted with various security headers, like none in this case, just the proxy secret in this case, and then we verify that we get an error response back with a particular message. And then at the end we have one that has valid headers, and so we get a 200 response back. So what I want to do is simplify this, clean this up, dedupe a lot of this copy pasted code, and then we'll go from there. So the first step is I'll create a private void verify error response method. We'll take the response object as a parameter. We'll take the expected status as a parameter, and we'll also take in the string error message, or expected error message, as a parameter. And we'll basically just copy paste these lines here, and we'll change these. Like that. Okay, so now we can get rid of all this duplicated code. Now, we should also get these cores response headers back in all of our requests. So let's create another method. To verify those. And let's actually call that method in here as well. Alright, so now we can update our security tests. Just call it verify error response. We're going to check the response. We're expecting 4 ones for not authorized. And then we're expecting that security message or error message. Now potentially I shouldn't use hard-coded 401 here. I could use HTTP status dot not authorized or unauthorized. There we go. All right, so let's copy that line. And then the last one we have is valid. And we'll come back to that in a minute. Now, for when we create effectively a copy of this class for all the other tests that we're going to run, we're going to reuse these same methods. So let's, instead of having these just in this one test, let's create a base class that we can put these methods in. That base class will extend Jersey test, and then all of our resource integration tests will extend our new base class. So let's copy this, and we'll put it up here in this v1 package, since we're going to use this base class for our list tests and our item tests. And we'll call this base resource integration test. Okay, we can keep our static in there. We'll do custom configuration in each base class. Let's make this protected, and we can delete the rest of this. All right, so now over here we can extend our base resource. We can get rid of the things we no longer need, like that, and we should still be able to run successfully. All right, there we go. So now we have a bunch of security tests, and then we have this test. So we can get rid of these and just call verify cores what we want to do here is verify the response that we get back contains the lists, the to-do lists that we expect. So right now, we don't actually have a method or a mechanism to change what lists we get back. So right now, we're just passing in this configuration, and then API application actually creates a data source from that configuration. So what we need to do is update our API application so that we can pass in a service factory that we've mocked that contains a mock to-do list service that returns what we expect for our tests. So let's go ahead and copy this constructor and then update this one to take a service factory. And then we can move this line up here. And let's, okay, so this one looks good. Now instead of binding a brand new service factory, we'll bind to the one that's passed in. And then up here, we can call this and pass in this service factory. This method needs to be static in order to do that. Okay, so now we basically have two mechanisms for creating an application. One, we pass in a configuration and we use that configuration to create our data source, and the other, we actually pass in the service factory that provides access to our mocked data. So now over here, I can update this. And let's create we'll create a private to-do list service. And then here we'll create a service factory. All right, so we'll mock both of these, and then we'll do mockuta.when service factory.get to-do list service, then return our mocked to-do list service. And we'll pass in our mocked service factory here. And down here, we can update our to-do list service.getAll to return collections.emptyList for this method, and then we'll create more methods that return actual responses. I'll fix this in a second. Let's call this something else. Test empty or no to-do list, we'll call that. Now, so this is a rapid API principle that we need to verify. So we know what's going to be in it. It's basically from these headers. So over here, we can verify that the parameter that's passed in is equal to this principal. And this equals comes from argument matchers that we've now statically imported. Okay, so now we need to pull out the provided to-do lists that come back from the response body. We need to pass in a new generic type here so that we can get our to-do lists back. And then we can do assertions.assert true that results is empty. So because we've mocked our to-do list service to return an empty list, we're expecting empty results here. Let's go ahead and run this and verify that everything still works. Okay, there we go. So now we can duplicate this method. And we can create some to-do lists. we'll just do 2. So now, these results we get back should match the lists that we said that we're going to return. So we can run this. All right, still good to go. So now we've got tests to verify what will happen with our various security headers being there or being incorrect, like in this case it's invalid. And then we have tests to verify what will happen when all of our headers are correct and we don't have results here, and then we do have results here. So let's look at our service. That seems to cover all the test cases that we have. I guess one other test case is if get all throws an error message or throws an exception, which might happen in this case. So let's go ahead and add a test for that as well. Actually, we can make this, well, I guess we'll start with this. All right, so test service exception. And we can, instead of then return, we can then throw. Actually, I need an actual exception here. So we'll just throw a fake runtime exception. We know our method might throw a runtime exception here with an actual error message. So we can mock that by throwing a runtime exception here. All of our headers look good. So what we're not going to get back is a 200. So we're expecting an error response. So let's copy this. We're expecting not unauthorized, but a 500 internal server error. And we're expecting the message to be failed. Let's get rid of this stuff. And let's run this and see whether it works. Okay, so we did get an exception. Okay, our expected response type was null, so we didn't actually get what we wanted back. The problem here is that we don't actually have an exception mapper for runtime exception. We just have an exception mapper for web application exceptions. So let's actually duplicate our web application exception mapper and create a generic exception mapper. So in this case, we'll just catch all exceptions and we'll handle them in the same way as we do our error response, our web application exception. But some of the information we don't have. So instead of from response, let's do new builder or new. Let's see what methods we have here. Okay, let's just create one from a status. So the status is going to be 500, which is internal server error. The type will be JSON. This will also be internal server error. .get status code, and then we'll include the message in here as well. Let's statically import this just to shrink this line down a little bit. Okay, so now we should get an actual error response object with a media type of application JSON. Let's run this again. Okay, there we go. So now we're getting the error response that we're expecting to get back when we get an unexpected exception from our service. All right, so this is looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and Maven clean install. Our build is taking longer and longer each time. Okay, so we've got some dependency issues in our tutorial API REST. So let's go, let's see, so we're using Jetty HTTP in our REST. Where is that? Are we using it in here? I assume it's from, okay, well, I was thinking it was from this one. Maybe it's from application. I don't see it in here, but we'll go ahead and add it anyway. Potentially it's from our tests. I'm not seeing it there. Okay, here's our Jetty HTTP. We're checking our HTTP status code here. Instead of using a Jetty HTTP status code, let's use a response.status status code. So let's get rid of this. Yeah, let's do that. And let's move that down and move that down. Okay, that'll allow us to get rid of that Jetty HTTP dependency and stick with our response, our Jakarta WSRS dependencies instead. The other one was unused declared dependency in REST. So we're not actually loading that JDBC driver anymore in API application. Actually, I guess it was in our test. And here, yeah, we did have this JDBC.class.getName. That JDBC was from that dependency, and since we're not doing that anymore, we don't need that dependency anymore. So let's come in here and find SQLite and get rid of that. Run this Maven build again. So what I'm going to do next offline is continue this same process that we used on our get all to-do list resource. And so we basically now have a collection of integration tests to verify the functionality of our get all to-do list resource. So I'm going to do the same thing for all these other resources, both the list ones that we haven't done already and all the item ones. Okay, so I think I copy pasted too much. This shouldn't be unauthorized. This should be internal server error. Let's resume from tutorial REST. So we don't need to build those other projects or modules. All right, there we go. Build success. So we updated our tests. We created this base resource test class. We added a new exception mapper. We reconfigured our API application constructors a little bit to pass in a mocked service factory. And we updated some of our dependencies. So all those changes make sense. That's good enough. And we'll push that up. All right, so next time I'll have implemented all of these integration tests and we'll go from there. All right, thanks a lot for watching. Subscribe, comment, all that good stuff, and I'll see you for the next one.